If this one Green Bay storyline breaks the right way, the entire NFC might have a real problem. A few weeks from now, we may look back at this moment as the point where everything changed for the Packers. Not because of one flashy headline, not because of one training camp quote, and not because fans talked themselves into another offseason dream. I mean the kind of moment where a roster either proves it is ready to take that brutal final step or collapses under the weight of expectations. That is what makes this so fascinating right now. Green Bay is not some feel-good young team anymore. This is not the stage where effort is enough and promise is enough. The Packers are entering the season with real pressure, real talent, real urgency, and almost no excuses left. What makes it even more intense is that the biggest conversations around this team all point to the exact same question. Are the Packers truly one move away, one leap away, one healthier season away from a Super Bowl run, or are we all staring at a team that still looks better on paper than it does when the stakes get high? That is the tension hanging over everything right now. The Josh Sweat talk, the Browns trade chatter, the national praise, the internal expectations. All of it leads back to one thing. Is Green Bay actually ready to break through? Let's start with Josh Sweat, because this rumor refuses to die. Packers fans have heard the name, debated the fit, imagined the pass rush, and talked themselves into the idea of one more veteran edge rusher completing this defense. And I get it. When you see a player with proven production, a player with finishing ability, a player who can change the feel of a game with one snap, it is easy to picture him in green and gold. But this is where we have to separate the fantasy from the reality. The reality is simple. Arizona gave Josh Sweat a 4-year deal worth about $76 million with $41 million guaranteed, and that matters. Teams do not hand out that kind of money and then casually move on unless something major changes. On top of that, Sweat just came off a season with 12 sacks and 4 forced fumbles, both career highs according to the Cardinals' official player page. That is not the profile of a player a team is eager to dump. That is the profile of a player a team expects to build with. So if you are waiting for a cheap, clean, easy Packers trade for Josh Sweat, that dream probably needs to cool off. And honestly, maybe that is not bad news, because once you step back from the rumor itself, you have to ask a harder question. Does Green Bay really need to force another expensive move at edge right now? This front already carries major expectations, especially after the Packers made the blockbuster move for Micah Parsons. That trade was not small. It was not cautious. It was not a backup plan. According to NFL.com, Green Bay gave up 2026 and 2027 first-round picks plus Kenny Clark to land Parsons, and then signed him to a massive new deal. That is your all-in move. That is your swing. That is the kind of decision that tells everybody in the league the window is now. So when people say the Packers should keep pushing chips into the middle of the table for another premium pass rusher, I understand the logic, but I do not know if I agree with it. At some point, you have to trust what you already paid for. At some point, the young guys in your system have to become answers instead of permanent question marks. At some point, this stops being about collecting names and starts being about whether the structure of the roster actually works. If Micah Parsons changes this defense the way Green Bay expects, then the Packers should not need to chase every rumor that pops up online. That brings us to the bigger national conversation around this team, and this is where things start getting really interesting. Albert Breer of Sports Illustrated said he viewed the Packers the same way he viewed the Seahawks a year ago, as a team that could win it all if a bunch of young players elevated from good to great. And he said he feels the same way this year. That is not empty praise. That is not somebody tossing Green Bay into a random contender list because the logo is famous. That is a serious national voice identifying the exact pressure point of this roster, because Breer also named the players who matter most in that equation. Christian Watson, Matthew Golden, Jordan Morgan, Lukas Van Ness, Devontae Wyatt, Ejaren Cooper. He also pointed to Micah Parsons and Tucker Kraft coming back from knee injuries. That is the whole story right there. Not just the hype, but the risk. Not just the potential, but the demand. Green Bay does not need a miracle season. Green Bay needs internal growth from the exact players who were drafted, developed, paid, or trusted to become foundational pieces. And if that sounds harsh, it should. This is the NFL. Nobody cares how talented your roster looks in July if those players do not take over in November and January. Lukas Van Ness has to look like a real impact first-round pick. Jordan Morgan has to show he belongs. The next wave of this core has to stop being theoretical. That is why this season feels different. The Packers are no longer selling possibility. They are now being asked to deliver proof. The crazy part is there is evidence that Green Bay believes in this nucleus enough to keep paying it. The Packers officially extended Jaden Reed. NFL.com also reported that Christian Watson agreed to a 4-year, $110.5 million extension, and that is a major signal. Teams do not commit that kind of money unless they believe the window is active, unless unless they believe the quarterback, the skill players, and the surrounding core are worth locking in. So when people say Green Bay is trying to build from within, that is not just a talking point. The money backs it up. Even the backup quarterback move tells you something about the way this team sees itself. The Packers officially signed Tyrod Taylor in May. That is not a flashy move, but it is the kind of serious move serious teams make. Taylor is entering his 16th NFL season. He has seen chaos. He has seen winning. He has seen locker rooms that were close and locker rooms that were pretending to be close. And when a veteran like that looks at Green Bay and talks about the talent, the chemistry, and how close the team has been, that matters. It does not guarantee anything, but it tells you the people inside the building feel the pressure and the possibility too. Now let's talk about the Browns angle, because this is where Packers fans start dreaming again. Once Cleveland moved Myles Garrett, the entire league started looking at that roster differently. Rebuild mode changes everything. It changes timelines, leverage, patience, and what front offices are willing to hear on the phone. The biggest name in those conversations is Denzel Ward, and on pure football fit, it is easy to understand why Packers fans would love that move. Ward is still a high-level player. He is a 5-time Pro Bowler. He is under contract through 2027, and with Green Bay still searching for more certainty at corner, the fit on paper is obvious. But there is a difference between the fit makes sense and the trade is about to happen. The reporting around Ward right now is still much more speculative than concrete. One report carried by Yahoo described him as a possible future trade chip in a Browns rebuild, not a confirmed active trade piece. The Akron Beacon-Journal also noted that Ward has said he wants to stay in Cleveland, while making it clear a rebuilding team could still listen if the right calls come in. That is a very different tone from saying a trade is close. So if you are asking me whether Denzel Ward would help the Packers, the answer is yes, immediately. If you are asking me whether it feels likely, that is where things get a lot murkier. Green Bay has already spent premium capital. Big-name trades are fun to imagine, but they come with real costs, real cap consequences, and real opportunity loss later. You cannot win every trade machine fantasy and still pretend the bill never shows up. That is why the more realistic Cleveland name might actually be Maliek Collins. He is not the sexy answer. He is not the headline answer. He is not the move that breaks NFL social media for 3 days. But sometimes the useful move matters more than the loud move. Collins is on the Browns roster, and Cleveland's official site lists him with 6.5 sacks in 2025 despite playing only 12 games. Over the cap lists his Browns deal at 2 years and $20 million with $13 million guaranteed. That is the kind of contract and player profile that at least feels movable in the right scenario. And if Green Bay wants more interior disruption without chasing another massive splash, that is where the conversation gets more believable. A veteran interior presence who can give you push, depth, and some finishing ability next to the rest of this front makes football sense. It is not glamorous, but winning teams are often built on the moves fans do not scream about at first. Still, the truth is this season probably does not come down to Josh Sweat, Denzel Ward, or Maliek Collins. Those are conversation pieces. The real story is already inside Green Bay's building. This season comes down to whether Jordan Love can lead a team that has now been openly positioned as a contender. It comes down to whether the young core takes that next jump instead of teasing it. It comes down to whether this coaching staff can manage the critical moments better. It comes down to whether Green Bay can stay healthy enough for the roster to actually look like the roster people keep praising. That is why this year feels so sharp, so tense, and so important. There is no hiding place anymore. If the Packers break through, the entire league will look back and say the signs were there. The talent, the youth, the investments, the star power, the national respect. But if they fall short, then the conversation changes fast. Then the questions get harsher. Then the pressure on certain draft picks, certain contracts, and certain decision makers gets louder than ever. And that is exactly why this is one of the most important Packers seasons in years. Not because hope exists. Hope always exists in July. This one feels different because the standard has changed. Good is not enough. Competitive is not enough. Being interesting is not enough. The Packers have built this thing to chase a deep playoff run. That is the expectation now. That is the burden now. That is the opportunity now. So when you look at the Josh Sweat talk, maybe the right answer is to let it go unless something dramatic changes. When you look at the Browns, maybe the right answer is to stay alert but stay realistic. And when you look at the Packers as a whole, maybe the biggest takeaway is this. Green Bay does not need another offseason championship. Green Bay needs proof on Sundays. This team has enough talent to scare people. It has enough youth to make a leap. It has enough star power to dream big. The question is whether it has enough edge, enough growth, and enough consistency to finally turn all of that into something real. If it does, the Packers will not just be a fun story. They will be a problem. And if it doesn't, then all of these rumors, all of this hype, and all of these expectations are going to feel a whole lot lot heavier by the end of the year. So now I want to hear from you. Is it finally time to move on from the Josh Sweat dream? Or would you still make one more aggressive push for pass rush help? If the Browns really are open for business, would you go after Denzel Ward? Would you target a cheaper move like Maliek Collins? Or would you leave the roster alone and trust the core Green Bay already has? And most importantly, do you believe the Packers have what it takes to make the kind of leap people are now talking about? Or are we setting this team up for a fall? This channel is growing fast, and I appreciate every single one of you for watching, subscribing, liking, and sharing the channel with other Packers fans. We just hit an exciting milestone, and there is a lot more coming. Also, on the next video, I'll give you the details on how you can win that Jordan Love and Tucker Kraft photo giveaway. No catch, no weird strings attached, just a thank you to the people supporting Go Packer Hub. So stay locked in, and I'll see you in the next one.